It's a real joy and privilege to be here, and I acknowledge my wonderful wife being here today too. I invited myself. I said we had a memorial service for a friend of Yvonne's family, an elderly lady, and had the memorial service here at the old Creamery Cafe in Cambridge on Friday, and it just worked out really well that I thought, oh, we'll come and stay and carry on, and so I invited myself to preach today. So, and then I thought, well, we'll hop over to Tauranga to visit my folks, and we did that on Friday night, caught up with them. They're quite elderly, so that was good connection. And then we decided, oh, we should go and see if these people that we knew from the time we lived in Tauranga were still there. And we drove up to their house and they were still there, so that was good. And then we came and fellowship last night with Michael and Cheryl, and that was great too. And then we just found out the list recently, it's quite exciting, our daughter's moving to Brisbane. She's got a job in the lab in the hospital in Brisbane, so we're quite excited for her, and that's sort of, it's actually put a smile on my face. I'm excited for her, and so things are happening in the Bieleski wano, and things are happening and moving on. It'll be hard to see her go, but I get to look forward to aeroplane rides. It's my favourite thing to do, going to Brisbane. So, so I wrestled a little bit with a testimony, because you don't want to be like, draw attention to yourself, but at the same time, you also want to share what God has done in your life. And it's about connections today. Zach rang me the other day, and as he disappeared, and it was that just talking about today, and he asked me about something from the prologue in John, and we're talking about something. And after that discussion, I went away, and it opened up a whole theological rabbit hole. So when I got to Michael's place, I've been saying all this stuff, and then we've gone, it's about the connections. Once we spark, once we meet people and begin to talk about things and draw on ideas from each other, we begin to grow and mature in our understanding of different things. So it's been a quite exciting week. So my testimony is about drawing all those connections together, but also what God's done in my life. And I feel a little bit like Paul. Sometimes I'm the chief of all sinners. And I can understand where Paul came from. He considered himself chief of all sinners, a blasphemer, he called himself. I feel like that. There are many times I feel, why me, God? Why would you pick me to speak to me and do the things that you have done? And I'm amazed at the grace of God. And I'm probably more amazed now on my theological journey, coming to a place of a certain background of theological understanding, coming to the place of understanding the things that I now believe in understanding. Even being here this morning, hearing the fellowship and hearing what's going on and hearing the sharing and the love that you guys are experiencing, it's very exciting. And so it's the connections with my life, and the opportunity to also be at the conference and to participate in those things. So it is really encouraging. So my message is a mix of personal testimony and biblical principles merged with lessons learnt. And I don't think I've actually given this full testimony in its entirety, so you are the lucky first. So it's to glorify God, to declare the name of Him who brought me out of darkness into His wonderful light. I made a commitment to Christ when I was about 8 or 9 at Browns Bay in Auckland at a camp. That's what parents do. They send their kids on camps, get a rest. So I went to, I was by myself, if I remember rightly. Like I didn't have any siblings or anything. I was only young, might even be younger than 9. And they have an altar call, and I went up to the altar call, and I distinctly remember thinking and feeling and knowing that Jesus was standing right there. As an 8-year-old, I knew. Went up to the altar call, and I knew that Jesus was standing there beside me, had that real sense of the presence of the Lord. But unfortunately, like some, that simple trust disappeared, and it sort of happened over the years, and particularly when I went to Teachers College, which was a very sad experience. I went to Hamilton Teachers College here, and 1979, some time ago. And you know you're getting old when you can remember steam trains. In Tauranga, I remember on my tricycle, I could hear the steam train coming. We lived in Otamotai in Tauranga. I could hear the steam train coming, and I was on my tricycle by myself. I don't know how I got there, on the road near the railway lines, and I could hear the steam train coming, and I was terrified. And I went past and I thought, well, that's not so bad. But, you know, you live in a time when you can remember steam trains. It's a bit of a worry. And I went to Teachers College. Why did I go to Teachers College? They paid you to go. So in those days, you didn't have to pay. They paid you. It's changed now, you see. So that's part of the reason. The other reason was they had lots of holidays. Teachers had lots of holidays. So that was my guidance. Those people are looking for guidance this morning. This is my, these are good principles, holidays, and they pay you to train. So that was my, and Teachers College was quite a nightmare for me. I almost failed. I got severely dealt to by lecturers. I failed my sections. I was a mess. I don't know how I survived, actually. And I would spend quite a bit of my time at the pub, the Hillcrest Tavern. I don't know if it still exists. Does? Okay. And we used to go, in those days, underage drinking was fine. No one checked your license. I looked really young for my age, because I think the drinking age was 20 in those days. The police would come through, and you would just sit there, and then you would stagger back to the halls of residence and deposit something in the rubbish bin and show it to the security guard, and that was my life. When I say deposit, I mean, I won't get here. Anyway, so life became a bit of a mess and quite a struggle during that time for myself. My first year teaching wasn't too bad. I was actually in Tauranga. What had happened at Teachers College, I did an essay on evolution. I got an A+. And I went around telling people there is no God. I got an A+ for my 400-word essay. It wasn't even about frogs turning into mammals or whatever. It was more nuanced than that, but I can't exactly remember what it was. But I got A+, and I declared that there is no God. I got an A+. You get an A+, you can believe anything. And so I've really gone down this, departed from believing in God, having anything like that, and this alcohol played a big part in a sad existence, really. So in 1983, I received a limited tenure 2-year position at Twizel in the South Island, which will enable me to pursue my climbing ambitions. My $1.95 a week fully furnished flat, $1.95, might have been a fortnight, $1.95 a fortnight or a week, fully furnished flat, face Mount Cook, ice skating in local ponds in winter, skiing, climbing, running out to local dams in the cold, misty morning, in the fog, for exercise, and returning covered in layers of ice on my jumper are some of the memories. Now, during this time, I was befriended by a lovely Christian family for meals and holiday excursions, skiing and climbing. No mention of how to become a Christian. No questions, no offer, no suggestion, no preaching, no explanation, but they were praying. They prayed and they prayed and they prayed. I didn't know this, of course. The beginning of 1984, I realized that my life needed something. Something was missing in my life. And sitting on my couch, lights just went on, poof, like that. I went, God, do you want me to become a Christian? It's a funny question, isn't it? That's what it was like. I just went from darkness to light. It was like, that's what I need. I need to get my life sorted out. I need to have purpose and meaning. And shortly after that, a very short frame of time, my friend, my Christian friend, Chris is his name, in Twizel, said, their fellowship, Twizel Christian Fellowship, was having baptisms the next day. And I says, good, I'm coming. And you go, what? I just invited myself. So I invited myself and I went to church. You know, when I got up, I knew what I was doing. I was inviting myself. I knew the cost. I knew what I was doing. I knew where I was going, but I knew I needed to put God back into my life. And I went there and I got baptized in a local town. Trism Christian Fellowship in those days was quite an amazing fellowship. A lot of amazing stuff was happening. I won't go into all the details, but there were incredible things happening in that sort of early 80s period, end of the charismatic movement, and different things happening at that time. And there were lots of people working on the dam projects, and it was quite an amazing place and time. I would go to 2 Bible home groups a week. I would go to the men's prayer breakfast. They didn't like my porridge that I made, but never mind. And we had lots of fellowship and stuff. Now, I had a limited tenure position. At the end of the year, I needed to get a permanent job. That was my second year. So I decided to apply for Harriet near Gore. And I'm not quite sure why I settled on Harriet. I think because it snows there. See, you've got to get your priorities right in life. You go to teachers' college to get paid and holidays, and because you go somewhere because it snows. So that's my guidance. Those people looking for guidance. So I got the application came back rejected. You get a little letter in the mail, and it says you're rejected. You don't fill out a big CV like you do today. You just fill out a form, send it to the education board, and they'll tear off the slip at the bottom and send it back and say, no, you didn't get the job. So I'm sitting in my beanbag in my $1.95 a week fully furnished flat and feeling somewhat troubled and pondering life, probably this recent event. And the word of the Lord came to me from Ezekiel 12. Now, I didn't know what Ezekiel 12 said. I got out of my beanbag, went across, picked up my Bible, picked up Ezekiel 12. Now, remember, I've just been rejected for this job, and I'm just thinking about this job. And it says this, therefore, son of man, pack your bags. Pack your bags for exile. In broad daylight, set out from your place and go to another as they watch. Bring out your baggage for exile by day as they watch. Then in the evening, as they watch, go out like those who go into exile. And I'm sure I remember muttering or thinking to myself that I'd been rejected for the position at Harriet. So what did this all mean? Next day, or a couple of days later, the office at school contacts me and says, you've got a phone call from the Otago Education Board. So I go to the office. They say, do you still want that job at Harriet? The job I'd just been rejected for. God had said, pack your bags for exile. He was about to send me into exile. I didn't know that exile wasn't going to be as much fun as I thought. So unfortunately, having said yes, it later became crystal clear that this idea was not one of my better plans. And when I packed my car, this is in the second term, it's 3-term year. This is the second term, and my job in Harriet started in the third term. I suddenly realised I don't want to leave Twizel. I love Twizel. There's climbing. I've got Christian friends. I thought, why on earth did I apply for that job? Why was I so, God has said, pack your bags for exile, you're going. And that was after I got rejected for the job in the first instance. So I knew God was saying to go. So when I left Twizel, my car packed to the brim, I drove down the road, there were tears in my eyes. I was crying. I was bawling my eyes out. I was just, why? Why did I make this decision? What's happening? And then when I got to Harriet, I was even more depressed. Population of 200, and my flat was $20 a week. And I arrived in the third and last school term of 1984, and I struggled. So I've been a Christian for about 6 months. I've been ripped away from all the things that I loved, climbing, friends, and I hadn't actually thought about what would happen when I actually left. And I'm sitting in my beanbag. Now, this beanbag's an anointed beanbag, because it's the second time this happens, in the beanbag, and I'm pondering this. And the word of the Lord came from Deuteronomy 8. And again, I picked up my Bible and I read this. You must carefully follow every commandment I'm giving you today so that you may live, multiply, and enter and possess the land that the Lord swore to give your fathers. Remember that these 40 years, the Lord your God led you all the way in the wilderness so that he might humble you and test you. Humble you and test you in order to know what was in your heart. God wants to know what's in our heart. He's going to test us to find out what we're made of. Whether or not you would keep his commandments. He humbled you, and in your hunger, he gave you manna to eat, which neither you nor your fathers had known. That you might understand that man does not live on bread alone, but on every word that comes from the mouth of the Lord. So, we learn that the Israelites wandered in the desert for 40 years, and that humbling and testing. Then the number 40 has significance in the Bible. It marks a period of either destruction, change, discipline, revelation, followed by a period of renewal and transformation. And we see this in the life of Moses because he had 3 lots of 40 years. 40 years as a prince, 40 years in the wilderness, and then 40 years leading the Israelites into the promised land. So here I am, wondering what on earth I'm doing. Still the last term in 1984. I've only just arrived in Heriot, which is in the middle of nowhere, in the farmland of West Otago. But God has encouraged me with his word, and I would meditate on the fact that he's packed your bag for exile. Yep. Okay, I'm humbling and testing you. Okay, what's next? In a very short period of time, I've only been there, this is the first term, I met an organisation I never heard of before called Youth with a Mission, sometimes called Young Women After Men, Youth Without a Mattress, or Youth Without Any Money. So you can take your pick, but it's normally Youth with a Mission. So the Christian organisation, some of you may have heard of before, and they had a base at Pukerau. I went to the open meetings, and I met a leadership team from the Melbourne base who were visiting there, and they talked about a summer service. So within a very short space of time, I decided, yes, I was going. I had 3 weeks to get my passport. 3 weeks to get my passport. I needed photographs. I need 2 people to sign my photographs for my passport. And this is a day when you didn't have digital technology. You had to put everything in a post, send it off. 3 weeks to get my passport, and I need 2 people in that area. Now, I've been in the South Island a year and a half. There are 2 people living in that area that know me. One of them was Jackie. She was actually also from Twizel. She also got a job at the same school. She was living in the next door flat. And Penny, we'd done some skiing with Penny. She was also from Twizel from way back. All of South Island, there were 2 people living there that knew me, that had only been in the South Island for a year and a half. It was quite amazing. So I got my photos signed, send that off, and I managed to get my passport back just in time to get across to the summer service in Melbourne. I think we even had Christmas across there. So eventually I did the summer service. So I've been a Christian a year, and here I am in Melbourne, on the streets of Melbourne, Burke Street Mall, trams going past, pretending that I'm Satan doing a drama, going, maybe you know me. That was the opening line. Did that scare you? So here I am, trying not to get run over by trams in between. So here I am, I've been a Christian a year. God's taken me from Twizel to Heriot, and now I'm doing this summer service in Melbourne, doing puppets and drums. Be honest, I'm doing things that scared me. I was never a person to do drama or stand up in front of an audience, never. So I did the summer service, and then I went back at the following, in that year, 1985, I went back. So I've been in Heriot a year, and then I left my job in Heriot, and I went back to work with Youth with a Mission for 4 years, full-time, had no income, no support, no nothing, and my feet, what does it say? Your feet did not swell and your clothing did not wear out. God met all my needs according to his riches and glory, but there was lots of discipline and testing and humbling because God is always shaping our character. So there's a whole lot of testimonies I could give about, I talked last year at the conference, I think, about being the shark story, because we had a glitch at some stage and I ended up talking about that. I saw a shark in Fiji, which was a bit scary. On one of their outreach, so we would go to Fiji and do puppets and dramas, and it's quite funny because we were in Nandi and we trying to find ministry opportunities, and we actually ended up doing puppets, the Christian puppets, they're called cruppets, Christian puppets, cruppets, in a Muslim school, believe it or not, which is quite amazing, talking about Jesus and the love of Jesus with the puppets. So 4 years of growth and development, and then I decided to return to New Zealand in 1989, and the word of the Lord came to me before I left. It said from the book of Ruth, she has only been in the house a little while. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. What does that mean? So I get on the plane, I come back to New Zealand, I arrive in Tauranga with $50 to my name, which I bought an iron with, because that's the most important thing I needed at that stage of my life. That's all I had. 28 years of age, $50 to my name. And with 2 weeks, all these things happened after I came back. Within 2 weeks. I don't know how it happened. I have my suspects. The Waikato Education Board contacted me. Now, I think it has to be my mother, because I don't think she wanted me to, her 28-year-old son, to stay with her longer than necessary. That's the only thing I can think of. I never bothered to ask. But they got hold of me and said, there's a job here in Tokoroa. Now, I've just been back in the country for 2 weeks and I didn't contact anyone. And so within days, my parents dutifully dropped me off at North School into my new accommodation, not $1.95 a week accommodation, but pretty cheap. Now, the person who's, now you remember God had said she's only been in the house a little while? The person whose job I took is here. And she'd only been in the house a little short while, a few weeks. She'd only just moved to Tokoroa. And I actually took her job as she changed levels in the same school. She'd only been in the house a little while. And we met in the first or second day, I think, and she'd have been in YWAM and so on. And she's been heard to say, at least according to the MC at our wedding, how will I ever find my husband in Tokoroa? Look what God did. So fast forward a few years, Yvonne and myself are living in Tauranga with our daughters Amy and Sarah. And now it's funny because the reason for moving to Tauranga, before I left Australia, the Lord also said, wise men go to Bethlehem. And then I found out about Bethlehem College. So I thought, oh, maybe I need to go to Bethlehem College. Wise men go to Bethlehem. So eventually I ended up at Bethlehem, and it ended up being not a very pleasant experience. Basically, I had a bunch of girls who didn't like me because I had praised another student, which was quite sad. I had said, well, you're wonderful, you're doing a really good job. And they went, we don't like that person, so we don't like you. And so for the rest of the year, they made my life hell, literal hell. They would build little fetishes, fish and stuff, and hang it under my table so it smelled, things like that. Yeah. So anyway, it was a very unpleasant experience, and I struggled greatly. So I only stayed the year. And Bethlehem College is a great place, and nothing against Bethlehem College, but I just felt like it wasn't for me. And I struggled for quite a few years, but I've only just suddenly realised a few weeks ago why I had to be at Bethlehem College or connect the dots. And this is actually going to tie into everything that's going to happen next, the dominoes to get me here. So far, there's been all these dominoes. Well, the dominoes are still coming to get me to this point here today. I believe they're things that God is doing. But I saw the grace of God. See the grace of God sometimes, because there was the same nice girl that was in the class. You do devotions. So I must have mentioned something about hell, doing devotions, being a Christian school. So I get a note from the principal saying the parent's upset because you mentioned hell in your devotions and stuff like that. So that left me like, I've got to deal with this. I want to talk to the parent. It's Friday night. Everyone's gone home. I don't know how to contact the parent and say, look, I'm sorry. I want to explain my situation, etc., etc. What do I do? So all weekend, I am just beside myself. You know, it's like when you're in angst, you want to talk to someone about your, and we went to the Big Rooster on Saturday or Sunday. It's Woolworths now. It's called the Big Rooster in those days in Tauranga. And big supermarket. And I'm sitting in the car park, underground car park with Yvonne's probably out with the girls bringing the groceries back, you know, and had no iPhone in those days because you can't do anything like that. So I'm just sitting in the car, just really stressed out about I need to talk to this parent. And I look up at, this is an underground car park. I look up in the mirror and I see this mum and the daughter walking together in the car park. And I just leapt out of the car. I think she just thought I was a madman. I just went, and she was probably going, she probably went away with the daughter and went, who in the heck was that? Some madman just going. So, but you know, that's the grace of God. And boy, just I mean, to me, it was just such an amazing coincidence where God is gracious to take that, put in a situation. This brings me to the next domino in my life. We're talking about guidance today. God is into dominoes. And so he's led me from Heriot, Twizel to Heriot to meet YWAM. I went to YWAM. He brought me back and sent me to Tokoroa to meet Yvonne. Told me to wise men go to Bethlehem. I went to Bethlehem. And but because I was in Tauranga, we went to Tauranga Worship Centre, as it was known then. I knew Yvonne had done the Word of Life course with the New Life Church, so I decided to do that. Now, at the end of the year, they have something called a presbytery, laying on the hands of prophecy. They prophesy over you. They don't know you from a bar of soap. Prayed, and so they prophesy, and the word of the Lord came through the prophet saying, you have been called to dig wells in the desert. To dig wells in the desert. And a lot of the teaching was about, a lot of the prophecy was about getting to clear water and so forth. That's good. Now, again, God's into dominoes. Look what happens in a few months of this prophecy. All these three things happened. One, we moved to New Plymouth. Now, in New Plymouth, you have, this is not the fulfillment of the prophecy, but you have oil wells that are capped. Wrong sort of wells, but we do have wells. In fact, people have wells in their backyard that are capped that can create problems. Two, I was asked to become a pastor of the Elim Church. And Elim was a desert oasis where Israelites camped featuring exactly 12 springs or wells. So I thought maybe that's a fulfillment. Unblocking wells have been blocked for many generations. Part of the answer to digging wells. And third, I started a Bachelor of Theology while Yvonne returned to teaching. It was through the Bachelor of Theology that my thinking began to change. I was a really strong fundamentalist, literalist Christian. And so doing the Bachelor of Theology began to change my thinking about how we understand Scripture and how we should approach theology and so on, things like that. The reason I was asked to become pastor is that the pastor had committed adultery. And they needed someone to take over. So we managed the church until its demise 4 years later, and we were quite happy, agreed with the leadership of Elim leadership to close the church down after 4 years. But during that time, I managed to finish my theology degree. And afterwards, I met Paul Prestige, who is nephew Warren Prestige, some of you might know. And we went to St. James Presbyterian. We eventually became elders there, and I was asked to preach on occasions. And these are the dominoes that have led me to this point in here today. As while I was preaching and teaching, I thought we need a good sermon on hell today. So I thought I'm going to do a sermon on hell. And as I began to do that, I thought I had begun to have problems with what the Bible actually says about that. And I began to do research and study and think, we've got this wrong somewhere. Yvonne's great. I'll go out to say, Yvonne, we've got all this wrong. And she goes, yep. She'll disagree with me. So And so if it turns out that, because Paul Prestige was a conditionalist, so I'm not sure what your understanding is, guys, but I believe most of you are conditionalists. You don't believe in hell, you believe something different, I would imagine. If not, come and ask me afterwards. But so he was a conditionalist, and so that led to my first book on conditional immortality. And it was while I was writing that book that I began to realize that Jesus was a man, that God had raised from the dead. The importance of the resurrection is quite essential to my book on conditional mortality and understand those things. And that Jesus is the mediator, who's the man who stands between God and man. So I began to go, began to think, God's changed. He's now a man. How can this be? Because God's not changeable. And I began to question things. I began to go, this is strange. I don't know how the next bit happened, but I ended up blogging on the Afterlife website. I met Tanya Burge, and the Afterlife website is the second most something website in the world on conditional mortality. I met Tanya Burge in Auckland at one stage. I ended up blogging on there. But I don't know how it happened. But from that, and again, I don't know how this happened. Lots of things happening. Dominoes. I got invited to the Martin Road Church to preach. And it was on Martin Road Church here in Hamilton that I met Greg Dougal. Well, I actually had a book swap with Greg Dougal. I don't know if you know Greg Dougal. And then from that became another book that I've written called Jesus, God's Messiah, which is a book on Unitarian thought. When I read Greg's book, he sent my book. We swapped conditional mortality with his book on Unitarian theology. I only read the first few pages and I knew where he was coming from. And I was ready. I had come to this journey in my life where I realized about who God is and understanding who God is. And the next minute, there's some guy named Zach who got my number. And I don't know how that happened either. Well, I do really. It's God. God is working behind the scenes. So I was saying, Zach, before when you were out of the room, when you rang me the other day, you sent me down a theological rabbit hole. We began talking about things from John. I've been in Michael's ear last night and this morning, and things have transpired from those sort of connections and interactions, bringing alive Scripture because of something that you've said. So I am excited because I'm bursting at the seams. I'm bursting because I know that there have been times in my life have been absolutely horrible. I've been tested, disciplined. I've glossed over an awful lot of stuff in my life. Hard times, difficult times, problems, where you're questioning, what on earth am I doing? When I left Twice to go to Harriet, I was crying, bawling my eyes out. What on earth am I doing? And when I was at Bethlehem College, I thought, I want to shoot myself. What on earth am I doing here? You know, so it's like there are times in your life when you are wandering around in the desert and God's testing you and you are going, where are you, God? What are you doing? And my life has been like that many, many times. And I've had to really depend upon God. And I've had to, really hang in there with God, because a lot of things happen in my life that I haven't shared, things I'm not proud of, things I'm not happy with, things that God's disciplined me and dealt with me in my life. So I want to finish off with Psalm 37. You'll be pleased with that word, finished. Which is one of my favourite Psalms, because it talks about how we get through the difficult times in our lives and our struggles and trials and tribulations and difficulties and hassles and things. Because when everything's going well, it's easy to be joyful. It's easy to be confident about the future. When you're uncertain, you're looking for a new job, Or your daughter is in hospital. Our daughter, Sarah, has just got a job in Brisbane. Yay for her. But we know she also has health problems with her kidney, so we're going, okay. So, you have things to celebrate, but things to prayerfully consider. Psalm 37 is a wisdom psalm written by David in his older age, serving as a guide on how to live rightly when wicked people seem to prosper and righteous people suffer. But I think you've applied a lot of the principles for your life as a whole when you go through hard times and difficult times and challenges. He says, do not fret because of those who are evil, or be envious of those who do wrong. And fretting just leads to evil. For like the grass, they will soon wither, like green plants, they will soon die away. Trust in the Lord and do good. Dwell in the land and enjoy safe pasture. So dwell means to live securely and contentedly in God's presence and promises. And the problem is that when things go wrong or the wheels fall off or we're not sure about where we're going, it's really tempting to perhaps look to the wrong answers or the wrong things, or to find false comfort in the wrong things, or to react in the wrong way. But we need to keep trusting in God, keep doing good. Keep trusting in God, keep doing good, keep dwelling in God's presence, and enjoy the safe pasture He provides. It's an invitation to stability, faithfulness, and trusting God's provision. 4, take delight in the Lord. Now, delight in the Hebrew can have two meanings. It can depict an inward position of pleasantness, expressed either in luxuriant self-indulgence, or the verb can also mean in a Godward soul-satisfying delight. The context alone determines which way that verb should go. Importantly, the believer's satisfaction should flow from communion rather than circumstance. The message here is not allowing circumstances to cause you seek false delights. We've got to cling to God no matter what. And in my life, and I said before, I have glossed over a lot of the hard things in my life and the challenges. Every time I've had to move, there's been a challenge. Every time there's been a domino in my life, there's been a Garden of Gethsemane experience, a challenge, a cost. God's dealt, disciplined, and humbled me in some way. Now 5, and this leads on to verse 5, commit your way to the Lord. Now that word commit means roll. Roll yourself onto the Lord. So I will pray, God, I roll myself onto you. It's like jumping in an aeroplane. You're going to commit yourself. No going back. I commit myself. I roll myself onto the Lord. I will literally say that sometimes when I'm praying. God, I need you. I commit my way to you. Trust in Him and He will do this. He will make your righteous reward shine like the dawn and vindication like the noonday sun. Be still before the Lord and wait patiently for Him. Now, David would know because he was chased around the countryside by Saul. And King Saul was trying to kill him. He had all these things. Wait patiently for the Lord. Do not fret when people succeed in their ways. Refrain from anger and turn from wrath. And in particular, I would add in there resentment, because sometimes when we're disciplined or chastised, it's easy to be resentful. We can't resent the discipline of the Lord or the dealings of God. And I remember, go right back to my Christian friends from Twizel, I was really a young Christian, really resentful about something. And I was so resentful that I wasn't in the right mind. And I cried out to God in my car as I drove to my friend's place. I said, God, I need to deal with this bitterness. I arrived at my friend's place. I walked inside and I saw on the ground a book called Youth with the Flame by Winky Pratney. I picked the book up and it said, How to Deal with Resentment and Bitterness. How is that? So I spent all weekend on my knees praying and asking God to forgive me, to cleanse me. God does things like that because God is dealing in our lives. Proverbs 3:11 says, My son, do not despise the Lord's discipline and do not resent His rebuke. We come to the final part of my word this morning. So I use the word final, gives you more hope. Verse 23, the steps of a good man are ordered by the Lord. Those people looking for guidance today, God is faithful. Pray, God, order my steps. God is able to take you from wherever he wants you to be. Now, the Hebrew is ambiguous as to whether who's delighting in who. Steps of good men are ordered by the Lord, and he delights in his way. Whether the Lord's delighting in your way, or you're delighting in your own way, or both. And part of the reason is that Hebrew uses fewer words and less grammatical precision than English. So there are actually multiple layers of meaning in there. There can be several ideas you can hold in tension. But the bottom line is all the versions are circling the same core idea. God is actively involved in guiding or securing the life path of someone who is aligned with him. He is faithful to do that. God is faithful. There have been times when I've questioned God's faithfulness. God, are you sure that you know what you're doing? I'm going to finish, very last thing. I'm going to finish with the words from a song I used to listen to in Twice. I put the headphones on, I bawled my eyes out because I love this song. I won't sing it because I probably would burst into tears. And this is from the Maranatha Singers, Praise 4, goes back. In his time, he makes all things beautiful in his time. Lord, please show me every day as you're teaching me your way, that you do just what you say in your time. It comes from Ecclesiastes, where there's a time for everything. And in God's time, he is faithful to do the things he's promised. So there are things over your life that God's promised to do. He's going to do them. It might take you 40 years, I'm sorry, because it's been about 40 years since the Lord spoke to me from Deuteronomy 8. Humbling, testing, dealing, but I wouldn't trade it for anything, because now I know the one true God and his son, Jesus Christ, and the things that he's doing here this morning. The fellowship has so richly blessed and encouraged me this morning. I'm just bursting with just wonder at what God's been doing with you guys, and I just pray and hope that my words be encouragement for you as much as you being patient and listening to me has been for me this morning, because just recently I've sort of gone through a hard time, and I think with my faith, and it's just been enriching and encouraging for myself. Amen.